Dear student, you're most welcome to the Gender Mainstreaming in Agroecology class. It's a master's class that we'll be running this semester. And it's going to help you to understand gender as a concept which has dominated different fields of academic study and in practice, especially in development practice. My name is Musobos Paul Stephen. I'm a lecturer at Mountains of the Moon University in Western Uganda, and it is a government university which is offering gender mainstreaming as one of the course units in a master's program of agroecology. It's very important that we have training in agroecology, which is going to help us to understand how we relate with one another, how we do share the power at different levels. So gender mainstreaming is at a master's level, which will be offered in this course, and it will help you to understand our power relations. Mountains of the Moon University has decided to offer this course to help students at a master's level to integrate the different perspectives of gender into their agroecology practice. This is what we're going to look at. And we shall be having different sessions where we're going to be integrating gender in all those sessions so that we're able to understand how gender relates with agroecological practices. To begin with, we're going to start with the conceptualization, understanding the different concepts. When we listen to different discussions around the world, there are many concepts people use. However, we don't understand them if they are not broken down to our level of understanding. This is what we're going to start with. We shall start with understanding the different concepts which are going to help us, or words which are being used in our daily vocabulary, but now they are being used in gender, so that we can understand how gender relates to the different aspects of agroecology. But also, looking at the different concepts, it's going to help us to integrate the gender perspectives very well and connect them with the different agroecological practices, so that when we are dealing with communities, when we are working with communities, the concepts we know what we are dealing with and how we and what we mean. I will begin with the introduction. This introduction looks at gender in agroecology. But agroecology is dominating now the different debates around the world. It has come to help us understand how do we relate with the environment and how do we use the environment sustainably and helping ourselves keep the ecosystem's health. So agroecology has gained recognition in the world and mostly in the developing world. Today, there is an increased global warming, destruction of biodiversity, loss of water and soil, leading to degradation, which has also affected our way of life. So agroecology comes in to be an answer to respond to these challenges that the world is facing today. So these conditions are problematic to the global food system and to the global ecosystem's health, especially in most parts of the world, and the developing world is being affected much more. So the natural global crises, the negative externalities of conventional globalized agribusiness are contributing to social inequalities, to most vulnerable members of our societies. So agroecology, as a practice today, is facing challenge of how to answer the global problems that the world is facing. But before we define gender, there are a lot of confusions about this word. It's a challenging word. There's no amicable or agreed standard about the word gender. So before we reach at the tail end of this word, let's first start with other words that lead to the understanding of gender. We shall first start looking at the differences between humans. For example, many people, when they talk about gender, they refer to sex. Because they will talk about the female gender, the male gender. Now, for us to understand gender, we begin by understanding the concept of sex. What is sex? Sex denotes the differences between the different human beings on the earth. Males and females are all human beings, but they have differences in terms of their body makeup. So this picture is helping us to differentiate male from female. We all possess different parts of the body, especially when we come to the genital body parts. That's what makes male different from female. But other body parts look the same. But however, the body makeup itself shows the differences. And this is where society began to bring differences between male and female. By looking at the body mechanisms, and this led to the attachment of what we call the social roles. As you can see, the differences between the body makeup, these body parts have different functions they perform. Thus, that signifies the distinction between males and females in the world. If you look at the body parts, especially the reproductive part of a woman, it defines which role is supposed to be played by this part. And when you look at the part of a male, it also defines what role it's supposed to do. Therefore, this is where communities began to draw the role played by the different individuals, male and female. And this is where they attach the social meaning of gender. When a male cannot bear a child because it has no place in the body where a fetus who is going to become a child can grow from. Therefore, a male cannot give birth. And the same thing is with a female. A female cannot impregnate because it has no body part that brings that function to its fullest. So, the understanding of sex is helping us to draw our attention about how gender emerged. Gender, as a concept itself, emerged from understanding the sex differences. So community members identified and described the different sexual roles, which they attached also to the social roles. And this is what is defined gender. So gender does not mean sex, as people perceive or take it to be in our routine expressions. Several expressions about gender comprise a genetical interpretation. Thus, gender is not sex. Gender is an established understanding. Thus, we call it a social construction. Community members, having looked at the differences in terms of our sexual roles, this is where the understanding of gender started emerging from. Now, from the scholarly perspective, the word gender holds a different meaning. For example, if you look at the expression by Anderson and Miles, describe gender as a social and cultural constructed roles, responsibilities, relations, expectations, including privileges of men and women. Therefore, that's now an established state of affair. So when we talk of gender, we are looking at the differences in terms of social roles communities attach. In our African understanding, African setting, there are so many social roles across Africa, even if they are differing from community to community. But you find that males have their own responsibilities assigned to them because of what their body makeup displays, and thus even the females have the same. From the south of Africa to the north of Africa, but also in other parts of the globe or in the earth, societies have attached differences between males and females, and they have assigned different social roles which they call gender in our understanding. Therefore, gender is a social construction which brings the differences in terms of our relations, in terms of our social roles, in terms of our understanding of what we're supposed to do. So gender is not sex, however, gender is an established state of social differences emanating from our body makeup, where society has assigned us roles. So it's very important when we are discussing about gender and to know these differences, that they are not biologically established, they are socially established. So gender itself has many other other related concepts like gender relations, which defines interpersonal interactions established in culture and social structures, social organization that trickle through all aspects of everyday life. So in gender, we look at our relations. And remember, I talked about gender relations as part of social roles. How does a man relate with the female at home? How do children relate with themselves as male and female? What are those values, practices that we are taught when we are young in terms of how we relate? So that also defines a lot on how gender discrimination emerges. So gender discrimination indicates social injustices in society, which emerge in our relations with one another. This is where they will tell you a woman should remain in the kitchen, especially when we talk about, and some African settings, society settings. A man should not be in a kitchen. A man should not wash clothes. A man should not wash utensils. A man should be a hunter. A male should go for very hard physical jobs, physical tasks, which a woman cannot do. And that defines our differences in terms of our relations. Now, our relations define what we're supposed to do. In that way, the word gender discrimination emerges. So gender discrimination defines social injustices. There's another one called gender needs. We have practical and strategic needs. Practical gender needs arise from actual conditions which women and men experience. They can also be brought by the discrimination we have talked about in terms of women taking decisions, taking positions of leadership becomes a strategic need. So to eliminate that is to overcome the subordinate position of women and men in society. So then we have practical needs. Here we look at assigned roles by society. Now, assigned roles, how do they bring injustices and how injustices result into a need? Then we have gender division of labor. Gender division of labor looks at allocation of tasks and between men and female, men and female and women. Therefore, that is division of labor. How does the division of labor bring justice, and how does it also lead into injustices? So gender division of labor looks at the roles and activities deemed appropriate for men and female, as Reeves and Baden 2000 explain. Now, all those we have looked at require a response, especially when there is a negative outcome in terms of our relations, in terms of our gender roles, and that response is what we call gender mainstreaming. So gender mainstreaming is a strategy to overcome gender discrimination, to overcome gender injustices, to bring what we call equity and equality. So gender mainstreaming is an organizational strategy to institute a gender perspective in an institution's policy and activities. It's meant to change the status quo. So in this institution's policies, in institution's activity, there are strategies to answer or to respond to the gender differences. So it requires an approach which is intended to enable females and males to get equal opportunity in society. Now, when we talk about opportunity, there must be a gap. There should be a gap which these strategies are addressing. So gender mainstreaming consists precise plans and activities of attaining gender equality and gender equity. These can be in areas of legislation. Gender strategy in terms of mainstreaming can be in policy development, where all males and females take part in developing policies that address gaps, that brings sex differences in terms of relations, and those differences lead to injustices. So in policy development, you find all parties involved in developing the policies that really build equality and participation. But also, gender mainstreaming is at the level of implementation of activities at institutional level. Here you find all women take part in positions of leadership. Women take part in positions of implementation, for example, in research, in managing research, in governance, in teaching, and other formal activities in formal institutions. So gender mainstreaming is a focus of our discussion in every aspect, in every topic we shall be undertaking, and this will help us to know more about gender. Now, at the beginning, I informed you students that we shall start with conceptualization, trying to understand these words we are using, so they're going to help us to understand the concept of gender mainstreaming. And we shall see how to integrate gender mainstreaming in practical teaching and in practical implementation of agroecological activities. For that, I'd like to end here. My name is Paul Stephen, and in the next class, we shall be looking at another aspect, especially which is connected to gender, and that is gender-related theories. I want to thank you for listening to me and for participating in this class. We shall take a break, and after that, we shall continue with a discussion about gender mainstreaming, and especially we shall be looking at the related theories that bring our understanding of gender and how it emerged. Thank you, and I see you next time.